For the next 5 minutes, I have two objectives in mind. Starting with that question that we can see at the top. Shall we move the future together? Well, we need to not think about that as a question. We need to move the future together. So, the question should be how? How should we do it? And that's why, as Kent said during his brief introduction, that's what we're going to be hearing about with the presentations this morning, how to do it. How can I convince you? Well, let's start wondering, why should we move the future together? The answer to that question is part of the question itself. Future, moving, and together. Let's look at each one of those words separately, shall we? Let's start with future. I hope you agree with me that for the future to be guaranteed, we need to talk about sustainability, both from an environmental and economic point of view. And during the COP conference in Glasgow last year, it was decided that the rise in temperature in the planet should be at most 1.5 degrees compared to the pre-industrial era. What does that mean? That we need to accelerate the process. There was a call for governments and institutions to put solid plans, action plans, on the table. In what kind of areas? Many areas. And there's one basic element that we need to address, and that's where we come to the moving. Mobility. Why is mobility basic to decarbonize our planet? According to the European Union, in 2018, emissions from road transport accounted for 26% of CO2 emissions. Apart from that, CO2 emissions also increased compared to 1990 by 24%, whereas global emissions were reduced by 22%. That tells us we need to act. Now, according to the European Environmental Agency, most European countries have a rate of vehicle occupation of 1.5 people per ride. That gives us a lot of clues for us to be able to decarbonize mobility. Again, I hope you agree with me that we need an action plan, and it has to be particularly relevant covering mobility. And for any action plan to work, we need what? Collaboration. That's the third word that we saw earlier. Together. We need to walk hand in hand, which will help us making more progress in an easier way. For instance, technological breakthroughs will get to the market faster, so we can decarbonize mobility, which is our objective. All the time, multinationals are coming to agreements for innovation purposes. Why? Because they know that working together, they will put their products and services in the market, on the market faster. In Mubil, we know that it's part of our DNA. Every single thing we do it together with 150 stakeholders so far in the private sector, public institutions, academia. I hope I've managed to convince you that we need to move the future together. And now I would like to introduce you to Kent Larsen. He's going to tell us how we can move the future together. Thank you so much.